Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pod Stallions. I am Brian, and with me to my left is my only member of my Matthew Waterhouse fan club, Mr. Jason Lindsay.
Hello, everyone. I'm a proud member of.
I actually left the group. You're actually kind of the only member.
Are we still called the Water Boys?
That's right. Well, you are.
I am. Okay.
I'm not. No.
I'm the Water Boy.
Yeah.
Carrying his water for years.
Mind you, there is a hefty tax bill to that group. Just word to the wise. It's been operating at a loss for a very long time.
Good to know.
Yeah. So I guess one of the things I wanted to do with this episode, Jason, was start a little game because I have been watching a lot of Love Boat with the wife the last couple of weeks. And I want you to play a game with me, which is like, which is the real Love Boat plot? And
which is the real love? You're going to give me a plot. You're going to give me 4 plots, let's say.
Yeah. No, I'm going to give you 2 plots.
2 plots. Okay.
Yeah. And
I thought you
were no. Let's do 3 plots, and you tell me which one is the fake one.
Which one is the fake plot?
Yeah.
Okay.
So plot A, a divorcee is haunted by the ghost of her late husband, Jimmy Walker, and he's basically trying to get her into a romance until he gets drunk and jealous. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how a ghost gets jealous, but anyways, B, a movie special effects man played by Father Tim from Soap is so jealous of his ex, he impersonates not only Burt Reynolds, but Doc Bricker with seamless rubber mask perfection.
Wow.
And C, a man, and I wish I could remember the actor's name that I had there. I think it's Randy Mantooth, loses his girlfriend to his father, played by Chester from Soap, Robert Mandan.
Okay, I have to tell you, my instincts, my gut, and don't tell me if I'm right yet.
Yeah.
My gut is to say it's a trick question. Those are all plots from Love Boat.
Bob, damn it, sir. You are correct.
Because by the time you got to the second one and you said rubber masks, I was like, okay, that's the only thing I'm thinking might not be real is the rubber mask.
Well, you know what? That's the worst part of it is the guy comes out and his case opens and all these like dollar store, they got these at Walgreens this afternoon. Rubber masks come out and he says, I'm a Hollywood special effects artist. And you're like, why do you have Dollarama stuff in your bag?
This is my travel kit. My kid stuff back home. That tells you. Now, I have not seen an episode of Love Boat probably, it's decades. To actually see an episode from front to back, it's been, I can't even think the last time I saw one. But I remember how insane the plots were. And, the ones I remember Dirk Benedict was on once. And I remember one where Gopher fell in love with Julie.
Yeah.
You remember that one?
No, I don't. I did see one the other day with Lauren Green and Richard Hatch.
In the same episode?
They were in the same episode, but they were not playing father-son. I was like, oh, dang.
Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't know. That's a good bit of trivia.
Yeah.
I watched it for the boobies, not going to lie, on the Lido deck.
Nancy Walker was on that a lot.
Those pan shots of the,
Yeah. As I recall, the show added more and more sex to it as it got like older. I seem to recall like during the years where I think Julie was off, there was like just an aerobics crew all of a sudden.
They just upped the
just like in the middle of the show, these gorgeous women in skin tight spandex would jump around, and it's like, yeah, okay, I see the appeal of that. But I was like 14 when that was on, and it was like, oh, the Love Boat's not so bad.
It was Aaron Spelling, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wasn't he dubbed like the Like, didn't
The
he
King of Jiggle or something?
Jiggle TV? Wasn't he the one that sort of they coined the term after the stuff he was putting on air?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So when did Love Boat start in 78? 77?
I think it started. I think the pilot show started like 76. Like the movies, they were TV movies first.
Oh.
And then I think 77. You're right, 77.
77. Okay.
Yeah, 10 years. Wow. 87.
Yeah, so Spelling had Charlie's Angels and The Love Boat going at once. Like those were big shows. Like Love Boat did really well, didn't it? I mean, at least the first few seasons, didn't it? Wasn't that a big hit?
It was on the air for 10 years.
Was it on for 10 years?
Yeah.
That was on through the mid 80s?
Yeah. That's what I was trying to tell you. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a lot of episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And then Julie left and came back, right? Didn't she?
Yeah. She had some drug issues.
She ran up coke and had to leave the show.
Yeah, it's a real shame.
And to buy some.
Well, it's interesting nowadays that wouldn't be a giant scandal. The show would have gone on, but back then she was America's sweetheart,
Right.
The girl next door.
Well, I remember the TV guide, that famous TV guide cover that was like Hollywood's cocaine problem. Like that was
and she was on it, wasn't she?
I don't remember. I think it might have been out like right after Belushi died, maybe.
Oh yeah.
And they suddenly, the silence was kind of broken at just how many vast quantities of drugs were in television shows, like in the writers' rooms and stuff. And I think in that issue they had it sort of an expose on square pegs. And I think it had just gotten canceled, and then everybody started talking about the rampant drug use on the show and how it was. But I remember seeing that on the cover of TV Guide. Ooh, cocaine on the cover of TV Guide. Well, that's a great little trivia question to open the show with because of our topic. Tell us what our topic is right now. Today.
Our topic is what we're watching. Because neither of us could think of a topic, and this one's always fun. So
I guess we know one of the things you've been watching recently.
Yes, Love Boat. But
now, what is it? You are fascinated with the Love Boat. Now, let's get it out of the way. You guys have been watching it. You tend to like to watch it. I know your wife enjoys it as well. But you also collect odds and ends from the Love Boat. You're kind of, you have a mild fascination with the Love Boat and Fantasy Island.
More Fantasy Island than Love Boat.
Yes.
The only thing I own from Love Boat are a couple of action figures.
You don't have the big boat, the big Mego boat?
No, I got rid of that.
But you did have it.
I did own it. Yes, I did.
There you go. So my question is, what is it about the Love Boat? Is it the kitsch factor? Is it the unintentional laughs? Is it the time capsule?
It's the same reason that when I was in the grocery store today, I grabbed a can of Chef Boyardee spaghetti and meatballs. And
so it's for the nutritious value.
Well, that is not what anyone would call food. And I love to cook, and I can make a killer pasta. That's one of the things I'm just very good at. But there's just something so, I don't know about that stupid can of crap. My wife calls it people chow, and but
it's comfort. It's a comfort. Yeah. You like the flavor, but it also just gives you a comfort of a bygone era or something there's something comforting about something that still tastes like it did 30 years ago.
Oh my gosh, yes. McDonald's cheeseburgers to me still taste the same.
Yep.
Harvey's, there's a chain in Canada called Harvey's. And it's not my favorite burger chain in the world by any means, but it still tastes the same as when I was a kid.
But and it's not, I know everybody says that, like the comfort in, every time I open a can of Coke, it tastes the same, whatever. But it's not true across the board. So, in other words, like years ago, I tried a Hostess fruit pie again.
You can't go home again there.
And, the corners are still delicious, but there's something about the body of the fruit pie that just was not the same.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the last time I had a Twinkie, but I know when I did, it wasn't the same. It was much harder than the Twinkies of the past, and especially it's happened with cereal. Where
Oh yeah.
Used to be, that's what made something like the monster cereal. We talked about the monster cereals, how it was, marshmallows, and it started with just the marshmallow and the round cereal, and the cereal was oat. I believe that's what it was oat. So you had the dryness of the regular cereal that was kind of flavored, and then every spoonful you had 10 bits of oat and maybe 2 marshmallows. Well, not only did the ratio change, they changed the way they make the cereal, and so now it's not oat. I believe oat is what Cheerios still are. Like if you eat Cheerios, and they're very bland, but it's got that texture and that kind of flavor that is
what makes them delicious is when a toddler hands you a moist one.
Yeah. And you have to eat it because it would be rude not to.
Oh my goodness, I just insult them.
It's like you're insulting their culture.
Yeah.
But so things don't all taste the same. There's very few things that you have that comfort with. And McDonald's cheeseburger is a perfect example of just about most places you go in the world it tastes the same. There's something kind of comforting in that. So I get it. So Love Boat is comfort television. You know what you're going to get. Every now and then you might get surprised by a weird co-star or wacky plot, but it's comforting. Does that make sense?
I'm sorry, I had the mic off. Yes, I was trying to say.
I thought you were just pondering how much you loved Love Boat.
Oh yeah, no, is this deep in reflect? No, I'm talking away.
The right, perfect way about the Love Boat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't screw this up, Brian. Again,
like I'm staring at a chessboard.
Give him the perfect shot. Love Boat.
What's fun about the Love Boat too is the guest stars.
Yes.
But also some of the plots are bad. Like, how do I put this? Like they wouldn't fly today, and there's some really crazy subjects. They often write Isaac as if he's a 4-year-old. I don't know why they do that. And then he's like, in one episode, he saves the ship, which is like, okay, which one is Isaac? And
Doc is always like Randy, like he's like.
Well, I often, you say that, but and yes, definitely. I wonder if because McLeod and Coppell were sort of the names going on to that show, if they had something in their script that's like, hey, Captain Stooping gets some this week, because it's like Doc and Stooping, and then like Julie gets one story a year, and they, you can watch. There's no interracial dating on the Love Boat, so if there's just like a stray black woman going on, you're like, hey, Isaac's getting some.
Right.
Week.
Oh, totally, totally. But Stooping versus Doc. What's he called? Doc. What was it? Doc.
Bricker.
Bricker.
Yeah. They all have wonderful porn names if you want
Doc
to think
Bricker.
about it.
I wouldn't have that. My life depended on it. But
Adam Bricker.
Okay, but Stooping gets action, but he's not like checking out everything that comes on the boat.
Oh no.
Doc is like, head to toe, just a walking, erogenous zone. Like he's just everything that walked. I remember them just being every episode. He was like, "Hey, who's that there coming on?" Yeah. That was. I don't think you get away with that today, where he's just filthy. Everything we looked at.
I kind of was joking like how you could bring this back, and there's a lot of ways you could bring it back. You could just make it like kind of dark and creepy, or I don't know, maybe even like do it as a reality show now. It probably is a reality show now.
Well, they did bring it back. They brought it back.
Yeah.
In the late 90s, was it, with Robert Urich?
Mm-hmm.
Was the captain, but the thing that's that it harkens back to a time again. Most of those shows where you could actually have talent from other networks come on the one network show. They utilized who they had in their arsenal, but there were people that already had shows on other networks that would show up on Love Boat. Like even that you wouldn't really do today, I don't think. You wouldn't have that kind of back and forth. I don't think, kind of like the Battle of the Network Stars. Similarly, is your mic off again,
Sure.
or are you looking?
Yeah, I had a cough. I had a
what?
coughing
What
fit.
is going on, Granddad?
Yeah, and you could tell who worked for ABC at the time.
Because they were in it more, sort of.
Yeah, like David Doyle is in a lot of episodes.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of recurring actors in that show.
Yeah.
Wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you said Nancy Walker directed a lot?
No, she was in a lot.
Oh, she was in a lot. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and if Maury Amsterdam shows up, you know who's playing his wife.
If Maury Amsterdam said who? Oh, Nancy Walker.
No, Rosemarie.
Oh, Rosemarie. Oh, bless her heart.
Yeah. Anyway, that's not all I've been watching. I've been checking out films. I like movies.
Well, let's get Love Boat. Let's hear that. Let's hear a movie, and then I'll tell you. I'll regale you with my journey. But do you know the movie, the one movie that Nancy Walker directed?
Thank God it's Friday.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Thank God it's Friday. And I'll never forget Steve Guttenberg doing an interview years later about the wrap party. No, it was the premiere party. Afterwards, and I think they went to Studio 54, and somebody was pumping amyl nitrate through the vent of the club, and everybody was just off their tits. And I would have given anything to have been there to seen that premiere party for that movie.
Yeah, I bet you that, like, how I often think about how my kids must think I grew up in a different planet. That might be our experience,
with something like that like hit theaters. I think, it's funny. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and we will get to these lists and what we've been watching, because this is all part of the same soup. There's this notion that we grew up at yes, just what you said about Love Boat. Everything was pretty conventional, and you wouldn't have had an interracial thing probably, in 10 years of the show, maybe. But we did have things in television that were groundbreaking that I think people tend to forget about. Storylines, or, like the Starsky and Hutch one I talked about, where the cop was, closeted and he got murdered, and, handled with taste. And, Rockford did it a few times. Barney Miller with gay characters that were just matter of fact. Soap, for God's sake. And then movies like that. And I had the Macho Man single for my birthday.
Yeah, we did.
I had an aunt. Of irony. An aunt gave me the Macho Man single, or the Village People, and I don't remember asking for it, but I certainly knew the song. And she gave me a cologne. There was a cologne called Macho Man. It must have been out for like 6 months.
You must still have some.
She gave me that single and a bottle of the Macho Man cologne, and I got so much action that summer.
Did she say you know what to do?
I said it to her, like, I know what to do with this. I got it. I got it from here. I'm good. And it was just a summer of hedonism. Just nonstop. Okay, so you did some Love Boat marathons. Give me a movie that you've been watching or you watched recently.
Oh my goodness. I found a movie, and you ever just like look at somebody else watching a movie on like Facebook, and you're like, what the hell's that? And I follow the rabbit down the hole. This happens a whole heck of a lot to me. But there was a movie called Demon of Paradise.
Demon
of Paradise. And it's from 1987. I knew this kind of going in, but it's really obvious. It's a Philippines shot horror movie that is supposed to be in Hawaii, but it's very obviously not in Hawaii. Like they couldn't pull that off. And it's about fishermen that are dynamiting the bay for fish, and they wake up this ancient creature. And this is basically a creature from the Black Lagoon movie. It's directed by Cirio Santiago, who did a lot of Exploitation. This is a really late kind of movie, and I was surprised that I'd never heard of it, because I'm kind of a lizard man monster movie fan, and I usually pick those up, but Honestly, had not heard of this one. Um, it's not terribly great. It's just sort of meh.
Mm-hmm.
The monster looks sort of like a tiki idol. Um, it's a little slow. I don't know what else to say about it, but
Hmm.
it was kind of interesting just on the basis of like, holy smoke, like I have this is like a creature ripoff I've never seen, so I was just down for that.
So it's a win-win, something you didn't know existed,
Mm.
and you just found streaming so
I believe it was on Tubi.
on Tubi. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and from what from what I remember, I think it was available like on Shout Factory or something. I was looking at the Blu-ray, and I was glad it was just on Tubi because what I often do is if I like it on Tubi, I will buy it on Blu-ray so I can see the extras and the if there's commentary, that sort of thing. And yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Well, you dipped your toe in and took a bite, and now you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And knowing is half the battle.
Yeah, knowing is half the battle. Let's see. I'm trying to think of recent stuff because I watch stuff all the time, movies and weird shows and current shows. First off, I'd say that I watched. Well, lately I've been watching the trailer for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny over and over and over again. So that I know by heart at this point. I've watched it so much. But a film that I came across. Well, actually, no. I'll start with a series. I think I mentioned this a couple years ago, maybe last year, toward end of year. There's a series that David Tennant and Michael Sheen did during lockdown called Staged,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's they're certainly at the start of the series they're never in the same room, so everything is through Zoom chat basically. Really funny. They're playing versions of themselves, and then there's a producer director who wants to do this project with them, and it's just you're just seeing the sequence of phone calls and them talking to each other, but it's full frame, both faces in the frame of the thing, or sometimes they cut back and forth. But they ended up doing 3 seasons of it, like 6 episodes each, and
Wow.
the third one dropped a little while ago on BritBox, and it's a really really likable, funny show. The two of them are absolutely brilliant because, again, we were talking about this. It's really tough to act like you're not acting, like being yourself. And of course, they're heightened versions of David Tennant and Michael Sheen. Michael Sheen's more grumpy, doesn't feel like he's gotten acknowledged as much as he should. David Tennant is the one that everybody loves, and he's always trying to make people happy, and isn't he sweet? And their wives, show their real life wives and kids, show up in them and stuff. But it's on BritBox. I think all 3 seasons are on BritBox, and the third one dropped and kind of wrapped it all up. And the beauty of it is that you'll just all of a sudden the phone will ring and a face will pop out, and you're like, oh, it's Olivia Colman, or oh, wait, is that Simon Pegg? So it's got all these cameos throughout it too, of people playing versions of themselves as well. But it's really good, really well written, and very, very funny. Very, very quick, snappy dialogue. So
Oh,
if you like that kind of thing, and if you like Michael Sheen and David Tennant, who have been friends for years, and of course did Good Omens, and they're doing the 2nd season of Good Omens, then I highly recommend it.
yeah. I didn't even know. Well, I couldn't remember it, so I might just check it out.
Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. I have been watching the new Mandalorian, of course, because I'll
Yeah, I
watch
have as well. Yeah.
anything they give to us, and I've enjoyed that for the most part. I'm just happy to have stuff to watch. And there was a movie here I'm trying to find that I just watched that was really hang on. I'll have to find it. It was something from the 70s or 80s. I think it was like, oh, you know what I watched? Speaking of all these things that are daring and shocking or weird that you haven't thought of in a long time, HBO Max has a great list of stuff, movies. You know, like it's almost as good as Amazon for the sort of, you know, not mainstream stuff. And they've got a thing for Turner or TCM on there too. But I came across The Crying Game, and I have not seen The Crying Game since I saw it in the theater when it came out. And just seeing it with fresh eyes again, I was like, oh my God, is this a good movie? I forgot how well done that film was. And it was Neil Jordan who it was an original story by Neil Jordan. He wrote and directed it. I knew who he was because of Mona Lisa, and I, you know, loved that movie so much when it came out. So I went to see Crying Game right when it opened, and of course, you know, nobody knew what this movie was about. The movie poster didn't tell you what this movie was about, and I just watching it again with fresh, I was like, oh my God, it really knocked me out at the time, but I was surprised how much it held up and how good it was now. And the central performances, you know, Stephen Ray and Jay Davison was incredible.
Stephen Ray. That was the one takeaway from that, is how good he was in that.
Oh my God! And you know, and then I started looking information. I was like, he'd never acted before in his life. He'd never done anything, and it's completely authentic. Every moment of that movie. It's funny. It's got a dark comedic sensibility. It's very violent, and it's like a great film noir. But it's like, God, it's 1992, and then the soundtrack, you know, the Boy George cover produced by Pet Shop Boys of The Crying Game. All these music cues, because I had the CD soundtrack and I played it like mad. But that was a pleasant surprise of like, oh, maybe I watch because you know, it's one of those movies that everybody knows, and I'm like, is this going to seem fresh to me? And then I started, I'm like, this is really good, and it just hooked me.
It's funny. It's funny you say that. There was some movies the wife and I put on the other night, 90s movies, and the first one was Singles, which I think we may have seen together when it first was in the theater. I'm not sure about that though. But yeah.
And that was 93?
92. Yeah. And I was a big fan of the movie mainly because of the soundtrack, I think.
Yeah, that was the whole Seattle, the really map. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting to watch it now. You know, with that much time on it, and see it for what it is. You know, it's slightly just trying to exploit the scene, but it's at least a funny and entertaining movie.
Yeah, I saw that in the theater, and Bridget Fonda and Matt Dillon, and you know, all these faces that went on to, you know, bigger stuff. But I haven't seen it again in probably decades. And you know, to me, it was where Cameron Crowe started to veer toward the sort of, you know, the guy runs down the runway at the end of the film and tries to, you know, get on the plane to stop the lover. You know, I love you, my heart belongs. You know, that kind of more conventional sort of storytelling, as opposed to like Fast Times, which was, to me, really holds up, and it's still a snapshot of a time and an age and everything. But Singles was a big movie too. I think it did really well when it came out.
I think it did, yeah.
And Paul Westerberg from The Replacements, I think, did the soundtrack, right?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, and don't Pearl Jam show up in it as like they're aren't they Matt Dillon's band?
Yeah, like Pearl Jam. You see Chris Cornell. Chris Cornell just wanders by in one scene. You know, I think you see Alice in Chains. Tim Burton has a little cameo.
Oh, right, he's at the dating.
Yeah. It's you know, it's got an interesting cast, and it's fun to watch it. Like see the little things that you've missed before. And the other film from the 90s we watched was Mallrats.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I loved that when it came out.
Oh boy. You know where that was filmed, right?
Yep.
My old stomping grounds.
Yeah.
I was like,
you know,
that place.
It still has its minutes. It still makes me laugh. My wife still thinks when people want to like shake her hand, she still thinks of stink bombing.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
But it's you had to be there. You know what I mean?
Did you laugh at all? Did you think it was?
There's still some funny stuff in there. You know, I think Jason Lee, that was like his first acting gig, and
Okay.
he's pretty damn good. He's not great, but I could see why he was cast.
And he was was he a pro skateboarder? Or?
Yeah, I think he's a pro skateboarder.
Yeah.
But
well,
yeah, I mean,
I'll tell you a couple of this is good because now I'm thinking of some things here that I came across. Like we say, Amazon Prime, you just never know what you're going to find.
Right.
And two things that I came across that I surprisingly found myself getting wrapped up in and watching multiple episodes of. The first was Farscape. Do you remember the show Farscape?
Is that the Australian one?
I think it was made in Australia, and it was like produced. I want to say
it's kind of got a Muppety quality to it.
A very Muppety quality. Some of the like one of the creatures on the ship is like a living entity, and it's got a pilot that's like built into the ship, and it's a big.
Yeah. I actually I never got into it, but I watched a few of them, and I thought it really looked good. I don't know how to say it otherwise. Like I just thought like this is really a nice looking show.
Yeah, it was one of those shows that when it was on, I caught it every now and then, and it never hooked me. But I came across it. I'm like, well, maybe I'll just start with season 2 and just see how this goes. It is such a weird show. It is such a one-off weird show. Like some of the concepts in it and the typical, body switching episode that you've seen a million times where the entity goes into each person and they become the other person and whatever. Very, very funny, wacky, and just these insane kind of concepts. But all I kept thinking watching it was, it's Guardians of the Galaxy. It is absolutely Guardians of the Galaxy.
I can see that. Yeah.
It is the dude from Earth that goes in a wormhole and shows up in some weird galaxy. It's the angry chick that he eventually wants to get with, but wants nothing to do with him, and she's a warrior. The big dude who's like Drax. He's like a big dude with weird dreadlock, tentacle things on his head. There's the other woman who I don't know their names, but she's got like white hair, short hair, and she's more like the French what's her name? The French woman who's now that joined in Guardians 2. There's a little a Muppet that's like a little frog kind of dude who's looking out for himself, and he's just a jerk. Yeah. Oh my God, it's it's totally Guardians of the Galaxy, And then I remembered meeting him at Comic-Con. This is pre-COVID. I met the captain dude, in an elevator, and we got to talking. Then we ended up on the same floor at the hotel, and I remember him saying, that he's doing autographs somewhere, and he said, I said something about Guardians. It's very. He goes, well, yeah. He goes, James Gunn admitted it. I mean, because James Gunn put him in Guardians 2. He's one of the gold dude. He's like the right-hand man of the gold woman in Guardians Part 2. So He clearly was looking at Farscape when he was coming up with the dynamic of these characters in Guardians. But it was interesting. But the other show was Remington Steele. And I thought, we just talked about this, and here it is. The entire series is streaming on Prime. And yes, even the one with Tom Baker. I watched that one too.
Oh, I thought there'd be a paywall.
Which was
because
just
that's how they get money out of Remington Steele.
Let me tell you, watching that Baker episode was such a time travel moment.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen it since.
Of getting the North American Doctor Who Appreciation Society newsletter, which had reprinted the studio black and white shots of Pierce Brosnan and Tom Baker, and telling us that he was going to be on the show. Waiting whatever night that was, sitting in front of the TV, waiting for Tom Baker to be in this thing, and he doesn't say 2 words in the whole thing. But it was, again, I'm looking at the show going, this was a really good show. Like, there was good writing, but Brosnan is fantastic in it. He really is. If anybody listening, if you think I'm being silly, if you haven't seen this show in 30 years, whatever, just pull out a couple of random episodes and look at how great Pierce Brosnan is in this series. He's completely dynamic. He's got great comedic timing. He's suave as can be. He was just,
and you know what? He smells nice.
And you can smell him through the television, how good he smells. Like, just ridiculously good looking. And he's terrific. I mean, I'm not sure he's been that good since, I'll be honest. Because, did you ever see a movie he did called The Matador? It was him and Greg Kinnear. He's got a mustache in it. He's like an assassin. And he's fantastic. And you're like, give him something to do. He's really good when you give him good stuff.
I remember liking Pierce Brosnan in a movie with Michael Caine. Oh,
The Fourth Protocol.
Fourth Protocol. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that in the theater, and I thought he was. I thought he pulled off the Russian spy thing pretty good.
Yes, he was a Russian spy, and his first on-screen appearance, he doesn't say a word, but his first movie is in The Long Good Friday with Bob Hoskins. 19.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of a fun thing to watch, and then of course all the faces that show up in it, that you the usual roster of guest stars that showed up in shows.
Yeah.
And then at one point Dolores Roberts shows up as the secretary.
Oh,
just nails on a chalkboard every scene with her. But
hot off the set of Angie.
Angie, oh my God. I was thinking about her too. Who's the sister that was on Angie? Remember the sister with the kind of overbite?
I don't remember. I kind of had a crush on Donna Pascal.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But he had a younger sister on the show. I think it's the one. She kind of had a bit of an overbite, redhead. She was also a sweat hog. She was like an honorary sweat hog on Connor.
Oh, Deborah Lee Scott. Yeah.
Scott. And she was in. I'm pretty sure she was in Angie. Wasn't she the sister in Angie?
She was, and she was just on a Love Boat, and I was like, I know this girl, but it was driving me crazy. Yeah,
And she was on Match Game all the time too.
I bet she was.
I think Pyramid maybe, or Hollywood Squares.
It's a very distinct face.
Yeah, very much. And because you could have a face like that back then and get loads of work. Like, she was a attractive young woman, but she had this overbite that was her signature look, kind of, and it didn't stop her getting
sold. Yeah.
You couldn't do that today. What else you got? What's next?
Oh, okay. Well, after did I tell this story on the air? I'm not sure I did, but we had a rough February where we were supposed to go to ZoloCon, my son and I, and we got refused at the American border.
Oh, I think I'm not sure we talked about it, but I think
okay.
we put something up about it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it was BS, and the guy was throwing his weight around. But on the way back, I think I was more angry about, missing out on the road trip with my son more than I was missing the show. And we decided to pull over in one town because they have Toys R Us and a Sunrise, and just to kind of like get over it, and we could hit the mall like a couple of gals.
Yeah.
And I picked up a couple of movies.
Oh.
And there's one I had seen and one I haven't seen. And the one I hadn't seen was a film called Patrick.
The Canadian one?
It's Australian.
The original one? Or was it Australian?
It was Australian.
He's in a coma and he's...
Yeah.
Oh. See, okay, you've never seen that, the original one.
No, it's like a Exploitation kind of thing.
Yes.
I guess. Yeah.
He's in a coma, right? And he can move shit with his mind and shit?
Yeah, it's... I don't know how to explain this film. Basically, he's a young man in a coma. He had killed his mother and her lover. by I think throwing a toaster or a lamp into the bed, and then he's been in a coma ever since. And they believe, like, this woman gets hired to take care of him as a nurse, and it's got all these like kind of unsympathetic characters in it, like the doctor and the head nun.
Yeah.
And it's kind of Hitchcockian a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And although I guess De Palma was also channeling Hitchcock with Carrie, but it just has an interesting vibe to it. And I'd never seen it because it really didn't interest me all that much. There was so much stuff in Australian cinema at one point in my life where it's like, oh yeah, I want that. I'll wait on that. I want to see more cars explode.
Right.
And but I'm at that point now where it's like, what's that about? So I checked it out, and it's definitely an interesting film. I could see why it got remade. And what I really liked about it was the actors that they got for these parts are like Hammer cast. Hammer could, the woman doing the laundry is the most perfectly cast laundry woman you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And these are just Australian actors, but they've really cast incredibly well. And the fact that you don't recognize them from anything else really adds to the film. You know what I mean? Like, it gives it a gravitas.
Yeah, I remember being kind of grubby. Like, I haven't seen it in decades, but it was one of those things that I'd always kind of heard about or saw the video box at the video store sort of thing. And eventually saw it. And then it shows up in that Not Quite Hollywood.
Not Quite Hollywood, yeah. Which I did rewatch after.
That is one of the best. That is one of the best documentaries about movies ever, I think. That is
I would give that one. Machete Maidens Unleashed is another, chef's kiss of a film too.
Yeah, and I actually have the Region 2, like they re-released the Not Quite Hollywood on DVD.
Yeah.
And it's got loads of extras, and it's got like an hour-long extra interview with Tarantino going on about what he loves about that era of filmmaking.
Right.
And what's the one? The Stacy Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis, Road Kills or
Road Games. Yeah, I had watched
Games.
that a couple months ago, actually.
I did too. I watched it like a month back. I was going to mention that among these because I couldn't believe how good that movie was. I haven't seen it since, again, it's like a VHS thing because I knew who Stacy Keach was. But it's really good. Like, it really holds up.
It's actually it's quite scary.
It is. It totally is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it totally is. And it's a weird character. Like, his character's kind of weird and just odd. But the inner monologues, him thinking to himself about having the multiple conversations in his head and stuff. With in his voice, like, no, but maybe he wouldn't. But he only does it on Thursdays. Yeah, but he wouldn't make that mistake as he's driving the truck and stuff. Just really good stuff. Very, very. But yeah, I should rewatch Patrick. It's probably streaming somewhere.
I should have checked, but I did enjoy it, and I think it's got commentary on it, so I'll rewatch it again. Okay. The other film I picked up, Theater of Blood.
Ah, yeah.
I think we talked about it not long ago when we talked about like the menu.
I think we did. Yes.
Yeah. I find like Theater of Blood and the menu are kind of like a series almost.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I mean, Theater of Blood is just it's so camp. It's so high.
It's so wonderful though.
Yeah.
It really is like Vincent Price, who's a fantastic actor, and Shakespearean actor.
Yeah.
Basically giving the middle finger in a a gleeful way to critics. And
Totally.
yeah, and what I think what also makes me like this movie so much is my dad really likes it.
Oh.
Because he's the one who told me about it. He's like, oh yeah, Vincent Price is. I think and I can honestly tell you 100%, my father was flicking channels and Diana Rigg was on the screen.
That'll do
And
it.
he just sat back down because he was a big Emma Peel fan. And then he just watched the film, but he really dug its sense of humor. He was telling me about the feeding. I hope I'm not spoiling this for anybody. If I am, my goodness.
I mean, it's possible, I suppose, but
yeah.
Go ahead.
It was
go ahead.
feeding his dogs to him, the critic, and then being the hairdresser named Butch. I mean, it's so fun.
Might be his finest hour. Being hairdresser Butch, and then
Butch.
Diana Rigg with the fro and the tash.
Oh,
is that when you see a photo from that scene with the two of them? It's like, I mean, it's just that is everything movie.
That's people having fun, right?
Yes, yes, that is people having fun. Yeah, she could do no wrong at that point. I mean, she went from Avengers to Bond to The Hospital with George C. Scott, Theater of Blood, The Assassination Bureau with Oliver Reed and Telly Savalas, which is a great little sleeper spy kind of flick. Oh no, I'm sorry, maybe Herbert Lom. It might not be Telly Savalas. I forget who's in that. But it's Oliver Reed and her. Like, she was just cranking out.
She also had like a sitcom.
She did in the early mid-70s, early 70s, I think.
Early 70s. I watched the first episode. I think it was on YouTube, and it's like, yeah, I see why this didn't last. Because it's just kind of built around her name, but there's not much to it.
What was the one that you discovered, or we simultaneously discovered, and it was there a Mason Reese pilot where he's
there is a Mason Reese TV pilot, and you know who put that on YouTube?
You did.
Mason Reese.
Oh, he did. Oh,
yeah. Well, bless him.
Yeah, but isn't it like his dad hates him, or it's just a weird sitcom? It's a very strange.
He's a precocious little boy, and yeah, he's way too smart, I think, is the whole premise of it.
Like all the in the 70s.
Yeah. It isn't the worst. Like, sometimes you're watching a busted pilot, and like minute one, you're like, this sucks. This is absolutely the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, that would be the description of the one with Dick Shawn playing Dracula, moving his family to New York, the wife and two kids. I think it only was just the pilot, and I forgot what it's called.
I've never heard of that one, and I'm afraid you're bullshitting me, but I'm also not confident enough.
Dick Shawn is Dracula. He's married with a couple of kids, and for financial reasons, I think they had to move from Transylvania to New York. And all I'll say is, at one point, he even sucks the blood from someone and starts to speak jive in this pilot.
Wow.
It is one of the most horrendous 30-minute things you'll ever see in your life, and it aired.
Okay, you know what? That's another episode for us. I think we should go through busted TV pilots.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. So this has been a good thought process, this episode. But
great idea.
Yeah, oh my God, because I now want to just derail this whole show and talk about that. And that, my God, there were 2 episodes of Mr. and Mrs. Dracula.
Mr. and Mrs. Dracula. That's it. That's the one. Mr. and Mrs. Dracula.
2 pilots.
Wow. I thought it was just a pilot.
Yeah, no, there's 2 of them. There's they saw the first pilot and said, "We're not there yet," and
we're almost there.
We did the Star Trek, we believe in. this terrible thing. So there are, I think either they fired Carol Lawrence as Mrs. Dracula and brought in Paula Prentice, who's really having a banner year in '81 with horror comedies because
that's like the Super Train way of making a show.
Yeah.
Like they put all that money into Super Train, and I think they aired like 5 episodes, and somebody went, "Yeah, we got to revamp the show. It's just not working." And they change it slightly, and it still doesn't get. But they spent so much money, like it almost bankrupted the network because the Olympics got canceled that year or something, and all that airtime is gone, and all the sponsorship and everything. So everything was riding on Super Train. And halfway through, somebody at the network went, "Yeah, I know how we can make this better." And they tweaked it, and it didn't do any good, and it was just as stupid as it was. Like,
disappointed because I was obviously just not available for the original run of Super Train. That seemed to have gone on like in a very short window, like a couple of days it felt like. But I saw a picture of it in Starlog.
Yes,
after it had been canceled, and I was like, "What's Super Train? What?" And you're a champion to everything that got canceled, and you want to seek it out.
Yeah.
And
I seem to recall watching the TV movie because it would have been one of those things that I saw a commercial for and went, "Ooh, that looks like something resembling sci-fi or the future or something."
Yeah, it just has enough, tinfoil in it.
It was them trying to do the Love Boat. They wanted a Love Boat.
Yeah.
Because and you're just like in the planning stages, anybody could have said, "This is not the Love Boat." Like what do we? So they ended up like one of the cars I think is like a disco. One's got hot tubs in it. Like trying. And each episode was going to be a bunch of guest stars coming in and having some kind of sexcapades or exploits or something. But it just doesn't have the Love Boat is a boat. You're outside, the sun, the romance, everything. A train. But how far are we going? How long is this trip? Because it's the fastest thing on Earth. Like, how long is this trip going to be? It's just stupid from top to bottom. It just stinks of, again, way too much cocaine in Hollywood.
They really, really should have got those blimp shows off the ground.
Yeah, exactly. What's next? What's next after Super Train? Yeah, we got to do a blimp. What was the other thing? I'll get this out of the way. We've talked about Star Trek before and the new Paramount Plus stuff, and everybody's mileage varies. Same with the Star Wars stuff, and that's all okay. There's enough of it to go around. If you love it all, that's great. If you hate it all, that's fine. For me personally, giving everything a chance that Paramount Plus has given us, none of it has impressed me. None of it has. I've watched probably far more of it than I should, trying to give it a chance. And the one that I was most excited about really was Strange New Worlds, which is not bad. It's just, I wish they would give me an adventure show kind of thing. Well, I don't know if you've seen any of it or anybody else has, but season 3 of Picard is the best Star Trek thing I have seen in decades. Next to, the first Abrams movie that I think is great, and the original cast. And again, I know enough about Next Generation to get by at references in this thing, and very little about the rest of the shows, but I can fill in the blanks. I just think this show is incredible. It's just like somebody said, "Look, we're going to do one more season. Who wants to do it?" And this guy stepped up as a showrunner, and from the first episode on, you go, "This is what happens when you give it to somebody who knows what they're doing and that loves this stuff." And I just think I can't believe how good it is. And part of it is that it's like, why didn't we get this earlier? Like, why couldn't we have gotten this kind of a narrative or acting or writing? Because the first 2 seasons of Picard were just, I don't even remember what they were about. But this one brings back the Next Generation cast, or most of them. It's got bits of Wrath of Khan adventure kind of things in it, and you know, not dogfights, but you know, war games, and lots of winking at the audience of little Easter eggs that I wouldn't necessarily catch. And everybody's great in it. And Jonathan Frakes is fantastic. I never thought I'd ever say that, because he's fine.
You're wrong.
I've always liked him. He's fine, but he is the MVP in this show. Like, he is just so good in every scene. And everybody in it is great. So I wanted to give a shout out to that and say, if you haven't watched any of this stuff or you've been disappointed, trust me and get on Picard season 3, because it's been great.
Yeah, I've heard good things, but the problem is I never liked The Next Generation. So
you're preaching to the choir. Like,
yeah.
I've watched enough of it, and none of it gets my juices going. But when you'd be hard pressed, you know, however you feel about it, when you see these faces that you're familiar with in scenes together, if you know enough about the characters, it has a weight to it, and none of it is wasted. Like, every scene you know, leads to the next one. Every episode, you know, it's not just sentimentality or, you know, let's mention that line again or something. It's not like that at all. It's being done. It's shocking how well this guy is juggling it. You know, it's, you know, the same people behind the scenes like Shawn and Kurtzman and those, but I don't think they're involved. I think it's all this guy, Terry Matalas, whatever his name is, that clearly just loves this universe. And it's great. It's like, the thing about it is too, I think it's 12 episodes, or maybe there's 3 left or 4 left, but very much like Andor, it's doing them in blocks where, you know, the first 3 episodes is almost like an arc. Now it's all in relatively the same time zone, but it's almost like that was a movie, and then the next 3 or 4 episodes, like, oh, that's a movie, and then and so on, and every few episodes, it kind of ends a chapter and continues the story. And it's just really, really well done. I can't recommend it enough. So yes, I've been enjoying that a great deal. That was the next one I wanted to mention.
Yeah, I do like Strange New Worlds, but it's, you know, to each their own, I guess, on Star Trek. It embodies enough of what I liked on the original shows to keep going with it.
Yeah, I love the guy playing Pike, and I don't mind the Spock dude.
Yeah,
I think he does a pretty good job. I don't love all the crew, but, you know, give me a good story and I can get past that. I can overlook it.
Yeah.
What's next? What do you got next?
I checked out that History of the World show from Disney Plus.
The Mel Brooks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw the first episode.
I think I've watched about 5 or 6 of them now.
Okay.
It's actually not bad.
Okay.
I don't hold History of the World, the film, in that much high regard.
Right.
It's hit or miss, and I like its energy, but it doesn't necessarily, to me, it's not like a comedy where I think, oh damn, they were just firing on all cylinders, you know.
Right.
So I like the passing of the baton. I like most of the people involved. Like I like Wanda Sykes, and there's a whole bunch of people in this one. Ike Barinholtz and Bobby Hill, the lady who does Bobby Hill.
Oh yeah, I had drinks with her a couple times.
Oh, no kidding.
Her name.
Pamela Adlon.
Pamela Adlon, yes.
Yeah, and it works for me. I kind of like some of where it's going. I wouldn't say it's a rush out and see, but you know, if you're bored, it's actually pretty darn good.
Okay.
At least I've laughed at some of the stuff. Not all the stuff, but you know, they've modernized it a bit, and it works for the parody. You know, I don't think Brooks ever visited the set. You know. but he's narrating it, and he
You
does
don't think he wrote every script?
I'm pretty sure he just went whatever.
He's a national treasure. We're gonna.
Hey, if this was like Young Frankenstein 2, I'd be a little bit like, no, please. But this is, this is history of the world. We're okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of affection, I think, for the first film.
Yeah.
But it really, front to back, it's not that funny of him. It's got funny stuff in it. Yeah. But it's just not in the league of producers, Young Frankenstein. Because Young Frankenstein was written by Gene Wilder, but Brooks helped and he directed it. But that the trifecta of 12 Chairs was in between producers and Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles. But those are the three: producers, Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles, and then it's diminishing after that, High Anxiety and so on. But he's a national treasure. Well, I'm going to pull one out that's an odd one that I remember when this came out, and I went, oh, I can't wait to see that. And then I never saw it. And now I found it again, and so I saw it. Did you remember a movie called Primer?
Yes, I saw it.
Okay, so Primer was written and directed and starred a guy named Shane Carruth. And
a mathematician, right?
Is he a mathematician? Like in real life, was he a mathematician? Is that
I thought so. Yeah.
That would make sense. Because Primer is one of those movies that, I don't know what the fuck. If you put a gun to my head and said, where did how much of that do you remember? It's like, no, it's a good movie, but it's it's almost too clever for its own good. But it's very, very well done. And then he made a second film, which the title escapes me. And then he just had all these other things that he tried to get off the ground that didn't happen. One of them he got so frustrated with, he actually released the script. It was like a 180-page script that he released to Twitter. And I haven't read the whole thing, but people say it is absolutely incredible. And like, how come this couldn't get made? Anyway, there was another movie that was, he did not direct it, but he's in it. And it's called The Dead Center. Okay. It's on Prime. And I'll give you the tag, the log thing. As a very dead suicide victim disappears from the morgue, troubled psychiatrist Daniel Forrester, Shane Carruth from Primer, is drawn to help a mysterious catatonic patient in the emergency psych ward, where a spate of mysterious deaths occur. As Forrester investigates further, a desperate race begins against the forces of evil that threaten to swallow him whole. It is very good. And it is really unsettling. Like, it's just, not in a gory way, not in a slasher, nothing like that. Just the concept of this suicide victim sort of coming back, and this guy working on the psych ward. This all happening in a matter of a couple of nights. Really surprisingly good. And I like finding stuff like that you kind of go, oh, that, like the trailer that you watch and you go, oh, that looks really good. And then sometimes you get 20, 30 minutes into the thing. You're like, this is going to go nowhere. Everything good was in the trailer. But this is a really good movie. I recommend it. It's called The Dead Center.
The Dead Center, right?
From 2019.
Yeah, I haven't seen that guy since Primer.
Yeah, because I saw this. The second movie he wrote and directed, it's really complex. Like, it lost me. And it's called The Color of Something or Something in the Color or something. And it just, nobody really paid attention to it. It got good reviews, but it didn't do what Primer did. And now I think he's left the industry kind of because he just couldn't get shit off the ground. But he's really good in this. He's really good and very natural in it. So I recommend that to everyone.
That's a great choice. Yeah, I was trying to figure out the documentary I was watching, and when I decided to go look at my history, I decided that it would be better to delete all my history.
Yeah, always a policy with you, I would just say.
No. This is the good boy computer. I can't. Oh, I can't remember what it is.
What was that thing? Was it a show or?
Well, I like to go on Tubi and watch. My favorite things in the world are filmmaking documentaries.
Yeah.
People are like, "Do you watch a lot of toy videos?" And it's like, no, because I already make them. I like schlock and underground horror, and I can't figure out what the name of the film was now, but it was basically a State of the Union for independent film. And it had like Lloyd Kaufman, and it explained what's changed and how like some of these guys can't even stream their movies because they get pulled for weird reasons, and just how we're killing a piece of our culture. A lot of great ideas come out of independent cinema. And I would really like to remember what the name of that film was, but unfortunately I screwed that up.
Oh, it's funny because you're making me think about a documentary I just watched recently. I think it was about film or a filmmaker.
There's another one I really like because I just watched with my daughter the movie God Told Me To.
Oh, yeah, I watched that I think about a year ago I watched that.
Yeah.
Joseph, is it Bologna? Not Bologna.
Michael Moriarty.
Yeah, but isn't there an Italian guy, one of the leads? Michael Moriarty, and who's the other guy? Is it Franciosa? Tony Franciosa?
Oh,
is that the guy?
I was just thinking that it has Andy Kaufman in it.
And Michael Moriarty's in Q as well.
Michael Moriarty. I'm pretty sure it was Moriarty. Or am I wrong? Am I getting two movies mixed up? You know what? Moriarty is not in it.
Is it Franciosa?
I'm getting him mixed up with Q. It's Tony LeBlanco.
Tony LoBianco.
Yeah, Tony LoBianco.
It was like James Franciscus, Tony Franciosa, Tony LoBianco, Vinny Boombots, I think was another guy. There were all these like sort of cut rate De Niro and Pacinos they'd get for stuff because they sounded Italian.
Yeah, that was a weird film, but what I enjoyed about watching it with my daughter was I explained to her that Cohen never got any permits.
Yeah.
So, like, this is real New York in a film.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Look around, and that's just people being people in was it 77?
They would have like shooting scenes without, like, can you imagine what people were thinking? As he was making it, like they're blanks, but like shooting scenes.
Well, yeah, God Told Me To has a mass shooting by a police officer at the St. Patrick's Day parade.
I mean, that kind of filmmaking just doesn't exist. Probably.
Yeah, when my friend and I were drinking vodka in the playground, we got charged.
But not
Larry Cohen.
Not Larry Cohen. Yeah, he was. I mean, there's a great interview that Joe Bob Briggs interviewed him, I think, on one of the drive-in shows.
Yeah.
And Briggs is a huge fan of his stuff, and
it fits. They're made for each other.
Yeah, and the other guy, who's the guy that did Basket Case?
Oh,
again, independent. He did.
Yeah.
Didn't he do? Same guy did Frankenhooker. Is that the same guy?
I know who he is, and I can see him. And he was actually, I have a documentary where he's doing the. Oh my goodness, he's doing the narration for it. Oh my, yeah, I can't remember his name.
Well, I'll tell you what else. Amazon Prime is good for. They dig out all. How things like Corvette Summer or like The Van. These shitty late 70s, teens smoking joints.
Frank Henlotter, by the way.
Frank Henlotter, yes.
Those.
Got a ton of these things like Blue Summer.
Yeah, I call them like booby movies.
Booby movies.
Yeah.
Teenagers pack a van full of beer and go on the road in search of sex.
Woo! Yeah.
Ski school. All these ridiculous $2 movies that were made in the mid.
Oh yeah, well, I think it's Fred Olen Ray said bare breasts are the greatest and cheapest special effect.
Yeah.
And I picked up, like, when I bought the Al Adamson set off of was it Vinegar Syndrome, or no, it was Severin.
Severin.
I thought, I'm going to just go through his entire film catalog. I want to watch every iteration of his films. And I did this, and it was painful.
Yeah.
To watch a movie that sucked, and then they retitled it and added new scenes, and now it still sucks. And that, but I did it. I was, just trying to stick to something.
Nerves of steel.
And the hardest thing to watch were his booby movies, because I don't care. Like there's nothing here for me anymore.
Yeah, it's the fascination with finding these things, these crappy, is.
Yeah.
I love the look, like, especially if it's an LA thing where you like, oh, the God, I sent you a picture from one.
I remember that. Yeah.
It came out in 77, but it was clearly filmed in 76. And these chicks get in like a van to go have a good time. And they drive down Sunset past the Cinerama Dome. And there's a giant poster for Logan's Run painted on in front of the dome.
Oh, yeah. Like, that's a charm of these movies.
Yeah.
But, I view them, like, how do I put this? Because, like, sometimes, like, I'll watch one of the old nudies from the 60s, and it's mainly for the, like, bizarre choices made in the film as opposed to the nudity. But there's nothing really to hang my hook on like, yet another parody of, I don't even know what movies these are parodying. You know what I mean? Like, they're not quite, like, I like bad Animal House ripoffs.
Yeah.
But just the teenagers in Malibu, like, there's nothing there for me.
Yeah.
They're not campy. They're not innocent. They're just kind of a wrapper. The brown bag around cheap wine,
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I just, that is the one genre where I just go, I have no nostalgia for this. It's boring,
Yeah, it's just to me it's like an oddity you come across. And you're like, I didn't even know that. I never heard of this one. How bad is it? Usually I get like 15 minutes in and go, this is just unwatchable. Like this is you just can't.
There's a movie that's called GORP, and I remember reading about it in the Malton book, and it was just like this kind of like, Meatballs, Animal House knockoff. And Malton had just like thrown like, lightning bolts like Zeus would on this thing. He really hated it. And, it was like a big manifesto about, don't watch this unless you think the word Quaalude is hysterically funny. And that piqued my curiosity. And a couple of weeks ago, I started looking for the film, if I could find it on Vimeo or YouTube.
GORP?
GORP, GORP, yeah.
Okay.
And I couldn't find it. You had to pay for it. And it's like, no, I don't think that's in the cards. But there was like about a 2.5-minute trailer. And I watched that trailer. And never need to see this film. It's set in a Jewish summer camp, and it's like wacky is what I would call it.
If you can find it free, then you'd probably sit through some of it, but you ain't paying
some
for
of it. But when I sat through the trailer, I went, there's nothing good in this trailer. So there can't be anything good in the film. So it actually has Dennis Quaid, Fran Drescher, Rosanna Arquette, and Captain Cool himself from the Kraft Super Show, Michael Lembeck.
Son of Blah Blah Lembeck, who was
right, Blah Blah Lembeck.
comedic actor from he was in Stalag 17. For now I can't think of his name. What year was that? GORP?
GORP, 1980.
1980. Wow. God, really?
Yeah.
Dennis Quaid had made Breaking Away by then, and he was.
Well, he must have. He must have been already assigned to this before.
Maybe, yeah, could be because Breaking Away I think was 79, I think. So,
yeah, and this came out in May of 1980, so he probably filmed this after Breaking Away.
That could be. I'm trying to find this movie, and you may need to look it up while we're on the phone because I have to keep the dog at bay here while I hold my phone at the same time. But it's done by these two guys. I can't think of their names, but they co-write these movies, and one of them directs them, and they're both in them. And there's one they did called The Endless that I might have talked about before. That's from like 7 years ago. They're a pair of brothers that they used to be in a cult, and they're now kind of living their lives, making their way. One's a little more naive than the other one, and they get a
I remember this film.
They get a message from the people still in the cult saying you should come visit. We miss you guys. Just come for a visit. Blah blah blah. And they go out to this area to visit them, and everybody looks the same, like kind of how they did when they left the cult when they were younger. Everybody looks really good. And to go any further than that would start to spoil it. But that's that's kind of how I discovered who these guys were. And it turns out they made a film prior to that acts as a chapter one that gets you to The Endless. But the newest one they did, and they did it during COVID, is called Something in the Dirt. And it came out last year, and I think now it's streaming on Amazon Prime. And it's a really interesting movie. These two guys living in the same building, one just moves into the apartment next door kind of thing, and they just start hanging out. They start talking about things, and which leads to kind of talking about conspiracies and what's happening in the world, and then it leads to discovering something they find outside, and they bring it in the apartment, and it just starts to develop from there. That like, okay, are these guys, are they nuts? Is this really happening? Have they been cooped up for too long? And it's all of their work, the 3 or 4 movies these guys have done. They did another one recently with Anthony Mackie and another guy, I forget, where there's a drug. It's in the slight future where there's a drug that is having this effect where it's pulling you out of time and dropping you into another the past kind of thing. And it didn't really work that well. But those 3 movies, that Something in the Dirt, which is not connected to any of them, but that's the most recent one. It's really good. And if you like it, then find The Endless. And I can't think of the one before The Endless, but the one before The Endless, whatever it's called, is basically 2 friends. One is going through drug withdrawals, and the other friend's trying to get him off of drugs. And he kind of gets him out to a cabin in the woods and like handcuffs him until he can, knock some sense into him. And weird things start to happen. They're really smartly written. It's got to do with time, jumping around a bit, and all of the scripts they've written have been really intelligently done. And again, makes me think of it because you were talking about indie filmmaking. Like, that's what these guys have done. Like, I think they've directed like a couple episodes of Loki. I think they jumped in to either write or direct a couple of episodes, and they've done other episodic TV. But they're really an interesting voice, the two of these 2 guys.
Yeah, I've forgotten all about that film you just mentioned about the 2 brothers in the cult. I think my wife watched that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it sounds so familiar. But she watches a lot of movies, so
it's on Prime, so I wouldn't be surprised if she came across it and got intrigued.
Yeah,
it's really interesting. They're just really, I don't want to say too much because they're really smart little avenues they go down in these scripts. And then Something in the Dirt is the most recent one. It really plays to when they made it, during lockdown, they're writing it during lockdown, filming, COVID, and how everyone's gone conspiracy crazy the last few years, and these two guys start to kind of unravel, and it's really good stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I checked out Bullet Train.
Oh yeah. Okay. What did you think of Bullet Train?
I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
I found it a throwback to a 1960s film.
Yeah, it was kind of. It did have a bit of that.
Yeah.
I wanted so much more, because it's such a great idea. The characters, the Pitt. I just don't think he ever turns it up enough. I wish he would turn it up more, because he's just so movie star, But it looked great, and I love the two brothers, the twins.
Oh yeah, they were awesome. Yeah.
Great. And Aaron Taylor Johnson is one of those guys he's different in everything he does. Like most people wouldn't know that he's the dude from Kick-Ass.
That he's the dude from Godzilla, or
Godzilla and Avengers, Ultron. He played John Lennon in a movie called Nowhere Boy, which is a really good film, and he does a really good job in it. Rumors keep floating around about him being the next James Bond. Now, they're probably just wishful thinking, but I'd love to see him as Bond. I think he would do a really good job, because he's just effortless in Bullet Train. I thought he was just great.
Yeah, he was a lot of fun with that character. It was amazing how they turned that around.
Yeah. It was fun. I thought it was fun. I guess I wanted a little bit more from it.
Oh, really?
I
had no expectations. I'm excited when I'm 20 minutes in and I'm still going at this point.
Yeah. It's a good looking film. Like, it looks great. The visual, everything are really good.
Well, what was really funny was my wife wanted to watch, I don't know what it was called, but it had Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum in it. And,
oh boy.
Yeah, it was that movie. And she couldn't get it. We don't have I don't know, Paramount Plus or whatever the service is. So I said, well, let's put on this movie. And I was like, by the end of it, I said to her, there, you got your Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum movie. Because they're both in Bullet Train.
Yeah. I sometimes, as we've gone over many times on this show, I can't help myself. Like, I have this masochistic need to, like, if I'm going to trash something, I need to, or like something just free shows up and just go, okay, it's free. Okay, you know what? I'll have it on in the background. Mm-hmm. That way I'm committed. And so I did the Sandra Bullock, Channing Tatum, Brad Pitt thing in the background. And it just made me angry. I just got more angry at, like, the money, the vast sums of money spent on a movie like this, and like just the same tired gags and tropes, and goes nowhere. And it just, even not even paying a full attention to it, it made me want to kill someone. So tell her that I did the work for her, and she doesn't need to.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't care if she ever sees it, or I don't think she'll care, because she'll just forget about it.
Good. Now, what do you think of 80 for Brady?
80 for Brady.
Sorry, I shouldn't make fun. It's the movie where Jane Fonda, Rita Moreno, Sally Field, and somebody else, they're all 80 and they're in love with Tom Brady, so they go cross country to see Tom Brady play football, apparently.
That sounds great. I'll watch that sometime. It's got everything I don't give a crap about in it.
Everything I want in one movie.
It's like my son. I come upstairs. He just moved back home, and I come upstairs, and he's watching The Simpsons, and he's like, "Oh no, I've run out of new Simpsons." And I said, "You know what, buddy? I never will." And because he was also telling me that they're not very good right now. So
Yeah, you're like, no, I got plenty I can still dip into.
Yeah.
There's another show on BritBox called The Cleaner. It's really good. I don't know if
I've
anybody has
seen
BritBox.
ads for that. Yeah.
It's really funny. It's
Yeah.
really. It's Greg Davis. If anybody knows who he is, he's probably been in some things that are on Netflix. But he's a British comedian. And he cleans up crime scenes. And it's only like 6 episodes, and each one is completely different. He's in a different crime scene, but he talks to, the person that lives there or the victim or whatever it is. Also, Are You Being Served? 11 seasons are up on BritBox. Talk about
11 seasons, 3 jokes.
Talk about never getting sick of something. Get on that show.
When I wasn't watching Love Boat, I put on there's a streaming Doctor Who channel, and it was Earthshock.
Boy.
Yeah, so I got to see Beryl Reid.
You know what's funny about Earthshock?
Nothing.
The Cyberman outfits in Earthshock.
Yeah.
Were recycled for a Kate Bush video called The Dreaming.
Yeah, they were Russian flight suits, I think.
Is that what that was? Because
yeah.
I just saw a YouTube thing talking about all the rip-off sci-fi from 77 to whenever. And there was some Australian movie that has about 8 different titles because it's been put out on video so many times. And there were this race of these robot type people in it, and they were wearing the same flight suit.
Oh, I know the film you're talking about.
It's about 19. Peter Gabriel shows up in it.
Yes, that's the one that's directed by the same guy who directed Roger Christensen, Battlefield Earth. Yeah.
Battlefield Earth. Yes.
That movie's boring.
Battlefield Earth?
No, Battlefield Earth is the greatest film ever made. That robot one. Yeah.
I couldn't get through the clips. I couldn't get through the highlight clips. If you've seen the whole thing, you're a bigger man than me.
I'm not a bigger man than you. I've seen clips. What's his name? Is it Deep Roy? Isn't Deep Roy the hero of that film? Yeah.
If there's room for Deep Roy, they'll find it. They'll get him something. But I know there's the soundtrack allegedly was done by Tony Banks of Genesis, keyboard player from Genesis.
Yeah.
And that moment in there where someone's looking at a machine and Peter Gabriel shows up doing like the Rhythm of the Heat or something from his album in '82. He's in face makeup and you're like, what is this? What is this? That's the part that I had to look up. Like, what the?
Yeah. That movie's called Starship,
but it was called something else, like The Life and Death of Luca Chancho or something. It's got a longer title, and then they retitled it Starship. Not to be confused with the third iteration of Jefferson Airplane.
Oh, Lorca and the Outlaws.
That was close. I was close to Luca Brasi, Sleeps with the Fishes, or whatever I said.
Yes.
A couple other movies that show up on HBO Max that I revisited that I love. One is easier to watch than the other. Depending on who you are, maybe they're not comfortable at all. Scorsese did a film in '85 called After Hours.
Oh, yeah.
Griffin Dunn. One of my favorite things that Scorsese ever did, and I just think it's like the Jason Lindsay story in 90 minutes, like dates that go wrong. Always fun to watch that. The other movie is a movie called Green Room. Did we ever talk about Green Room? Have you ever seen that?
I was thinking of checking it out. That's unbelievable.
It's so fucking good, man.
It
is so good. The dude who wrote and directed it, the movie he did before this one is called Blue Ruin, and I recommend finding that one too. It's about one of the same actors is in Green Room, but that one's about a guy who goes on kind of a revenge trip. I don't want to say too much about it, but it's gritty. It's kind of darkly funny, but it's when you see it, you're just like, I've never seen anything like this. It's just a strange narrative.
You just reminded me of a similar film, or at least I think in a similar vein to Green Room, is a movie I watched recently called VFW.
VFW, it's great exploitation flick. It's
It's Carpenter, esque is the
Totally.
best example. And
It's
boy,
got
did I
what
really enjoy that film. I watched it a
great.
couple of years ago, and then I rented it. Believe it or not, I was so interested in seeing it again. I thought I'll just pay $5 and see it. And
And it's
yeah,
got who's the lead? I can't think of his name, but
the lead is the same guy that's in Avatar.
yeah, he's a guy that started on Broadway. Like I can't think of his name now, but
Yeah,
he played Biff in Death of a Salesman. And then when they did that on CBS, when it was Dustin Hoffman and John Malkovich, it's one of the earliest things he did. And then Michael Mann put him in Manhunter and some other things. And then he just kind of, you'd see him just pop up in things. And then all of a sudden, he started showing up. He became, his body became different. He became like a hard ass. Like he really got to be this, Soloflex type guy. And he started showing up in more stuff, and then he showed up in Avatar, and now it's been nonstop.
and I in Avatar, I really found he was like Mr. Mustache Twirl.
Oh yeah, the whole
But
movie's a mustache twirl. The whole thing.
But in this, it's like it's a different guy.
Yeah, he's great in it. And
Yeah.
Daniel Patrick Kelly, is that Daniel?
Yeah. Our friend from the Warriors.
Yeah.
Fred Williamson. Martin Cove.
Martin Cove. Yeah. You're like, where have you been? Martin Cove, man. That's a good movie. That's a good
movie. And the villain, what I love about the villain is he's just kind of that right amount of camp.
Yeah.
And threatening.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hurt that he looks exactly like Terrence Stamp as General Zod.
Yeah. It takes it right up to the line of, I mean, it's definitely exploitation, but it's like it's not quite a guilty pleasure. Like, it's a well-made film, and it does exactly what it says on the tin, kind of like.
Except that, and this is a problem, and I will fully admit it's my problem. But when I watch something that, someone's made and they say it's Grindhouse, oh no, it's you can't fake that patina. You can't. There's not enough photo filters and over the top gore and violence that's computer generated. Like that really bothers me. And so for this film to actually never make me cringe.
Well, the two Grindhouse flicks couldn't even replicate Grindhouse. No. And that was what they set out to do, and they couldn't do it. Like this to me is, I mean, I guess exploitation is the closest word I could use. Like, it's just a kind of gritty, you know what the outcome of this movie is going to be. The outcome. Yeah,
it delivers on everything. It is not necessarily artisanal. But it is basically knocking off John Carpenter, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that's what an exploitation movie does.
Yeah, just in a quicker way. And it's great to see those guys on screen, like seeing them.
Yeah, they're so fun.
Williamson, yeah. Well, speaking of Picard, one of the heavies in Green Room is Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, I wanted to say that's the one with Patrick Stewart, but I didn't want to embarrass myself.
It's hard to watch for me because I really liked the Russian kid, Anton
Yelchin.
I really liked Anton Yelchin.
Everybody did. He was, he was a nice boy.
He just had a likability on screen. He did some great stuff. He was always good, and he had a weird rhythm as a kid. Even the way he kind of delivered lines, he just was. And so, it's one of the last things he did, one of the last big movies he did. But it's a kind of a punk film. Like, they're this punk band that are looking for gigs, and they get this gig in a roundabout way, and it ends up being at a club for fucking Nazis, neo-Nazis, white supremacists. And then they just want to get out of there, just want to get paid and get out of there, and something goes wrong, and now they're stuck. and it is so good. It is so good.
Yeah, you know what? That was on, like, I had put a sticky note on that. Like,
Oh, great.
that's the name of that film. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to that this weekend.
Oh, good. Now, did you ever see a movie called Lucy with, speaking
Oh,
of exploitation
yeah.
type, with Scarlett Johansson?
Oh, yeah, of course I did. Yeah.
I think that is an underrated flick. I don't know why nobody talks about that movie's insane.
I love that movie.
Yeah, that's another one that's up on HBO Max. It's like, if you haven't seen Lucy, give that one a spin, because it is bonkers.
Yeah,
It's
no,
totally,
I'm a huge fan of that film.
yeah.
And you're right. Like, it just kind of isn't talked about, but it's a fun movie.
Yeah, I think because the trope of like the young attractive woman suddenly can kick everyone's ass, because she got activated again or brainwashed, or she's a fucking android or something. We've seen that so many times. But in this thing, she ingests a drug that gets her to like use the brain. It's, how they say you're only using like 10% of your brain or whatever. She ends up eating this drug accidentally or something, where she's using the full capacity of her brain, and she's becoming. It's such a great sci-fi, slight exploitation kind of trope.
Yeah, and what I appreciate about it, again, is not a tent pole, not a franchise.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
an idea.
Yeah,
coming out.
Luc Besson, who's always been a hitter, but it's a Luc Besson flick. And on the same note, now I haven't watched this in years, but did you ever see a movie called Smokin' Aces?
That sounds really familiar.
Another one that's just bonkers. It's done by, I think, Joe. What's the guy that did Joe Carnahan? Written and directed by Joe Carnahan. The world's deadliest assassins converge on a Lake Tahoe casino to take their shot at a $1 million hit in this action thriller. Ben Affleck, Andy Garcia, Alicia Keys, Ray Liotta, Jeremy Piven, Ryan Reynolds, and a young Chris Pine is in it too. One of the first things he did with Joe Carnahan.
No,
that's up on Prime as well, and that is a underrated little gem if nobody's seen it. It's batshit crazy, but it's there's something about it. It's just really
there's just something special about it.
Yeah, it's just kind of nuts, and it's nice to find, so like you say, trying to find things that aren't a remake, or isn't a part of a franchise, or it's not Casablanca, a thing that everybody's seen. It's nice to find sleeper stuff that you can revisit, or that and this HBO Max is doing a great job of finding this stuff that you can't find anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to think. Oh yeah, this is another thing I watched recently, and that was a 1981 81 TV movie called The Intruder Within. Alien on an oil rig. That's the film.
This sounds familiar. Is it a TV movie, you said?
It's a TV movie. And you can find it on YouTube, so don't go seeking it out. And yeah, it is essentially, they dig too deep, and they bring up this thing. They can't quite do the chest burster, but the thing infects them. There's eggs. It's actually quite a strange film.
I think I've seen this.
I bet you have.
Anybody in it? Any names in it that?
Yeah, I'm trying to dig it up because I was watching it about a month ago, and I'll demystify it too, because what it was 1981. Here it is. Yeah, it's got Chad Everett, Joseph Bottoms from The Black Hole.
Yeah.
Rockne Tarkenton, who played Black Samson. And that's pretty much it for the cast. Jennifer Warren was the female, the love interest for Chad.
The singer?
Is
she a singer? Didn't she do Up Where We Belong with Joe Cocker? Am I crazy? I'm probably different Jennifer.
This is an actress. but she was in Ice Castles and Night Moves and Slapshot. Oh.
Hey, now you're talking. Slapshot.
So when I was a kid, my friend's parents were members of the racquetball club in the little town we lived in. And my friend would say, "Hey, want to hang with me tonight?" And I'd be like, "Sure." And what it was like the parents would pick me up and take me to a little variety store on the way so we could buy like Empire Strikes Back cards just to put you in the time of year it was. And then we would play, games with our new cards, and we could watch anything we wanted because basically my friend's parents were getting drunk in the bar section of this place. And there was no place for kids. So they just like sanctioned off one side of the bar and put the TV on and let us do whatever we wanted in this place. And that movie was on, and we were kind of forced to watch it. There was no clicker. And it freaked me the hell out that night. And, I watched it to basically like, I finally got around to like, okay, let's watch this thing. And yeah, I had no right to be scared whatsoever.
That would be just the kind of thing I would circle in the TV Times to watch. I think I did see this. That sounds really familiar. Yeah. The oil rig.
I'd like to go back in time and go to my 10-year-old self at that racquetball club and go, this movie sucks.
But when you watched it, did it look? Was there any familiarity? Did you go, oh, I remember this thing coming up, or I remember?
Yeah, I remember. There's like, I seem to recall them washing something off the shore, or washing something like a monster off the platform at one point. But it's so hard to untangle that from the orca baby scene. When they capture Orca's mate and she had a baby and the fetus drops. Do you not remember that scene in Orca?
Oh, in Orca.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, that scared the crap out of me. So I can't. Oh. I can't distinguish the two scenes now. That 50 years later, 40 years later. So yeah, I can't remember it all.
Yeah, it's just funny how some of these things, when I do revisit them or see something, it's extraordinary how, like Remington Steele, like the Tom Baker thing. Like I remember the name of his character.
Anatole Blaylock. Yeah, we've done that one a few times.
Ridiculous. No reason to remember that.
Yeah, there's something that no one's ever going to have a gun to your head.
It's never going to come up. It's never going to be on a trivia quest.
You're not going to. I mean, the universe just doesn't work that way. It would be your greatest enemy.
Why would I know? Why would I have that in my head? It's ridiculous. Yeah. I would know that. But then the theme tune, like the first time the theme tune kicked on, I swear to you, I've not seen this show since it aired. And I mean, I think it started in like 81 or 82, whatever it was, and I might have got through a couple of seasons, and then, I never like went to the end of the show that was off the air. But as soon as the theme kicked in, I just went, oh my God, yeah, that's the theme. Like, and then it's just it's like an earworm in my head forever. And you go, God, it's like I heard it yesterday. And it's interesting revisiting things sometimes where you're like, oh yeah, I remember that bit. I haven't seen this in 30 years, but I know what's coming. I know what's next.
Like to just wrap this right around. I can be cooking and my wife's watching a Love Boat, and I will come in and go, that kid right there is a stowaway, and just walk right back out because I remembered that,
See, that's what I mean. Like, what? There's clearly something more important that's probably missing from that drawer in your brain, and instead that the kid's a stowaway from a fucking Love Boat episode. Like, that's what I mean. Like the weird things we sort of that stick around. It's very odd, very strange.
There was a kid on one the other day, and I was like, I know this kid. Yeah, he was one of the Canes on Kung Fu, and it's like, I'm embarrassed that I remember this.
There was more than one Kane?
Yeah, there's little kid flashback Kanes.
Oh, one of the Kane. Oh, one of the same guy. Okay, I thought you meant.
Yeah.
I thought it was a family name. I was like, did he have siblings? I didn't know that. That's what I thought.
It is a family name. Kane is his last name, but
right. I don't know if he had like a large family that he left behind or something. I didn't.
Well, that was the whole plot of the series. I guess somebody
two other
been paying attention.
That are up on Netflix. One of which is going to be gone by the end of the month if you haven't seen it. Anybody listening? The other one, the newest from 2018, whatever it was, the newest with Bob and David, Mr. Show kind of thing. I jumped back into that and rewatched a couple of them, and I forgot how funny that was. How it was.
Yeah, I watched it. I watched a couple months ago, just a couple of them, and I some of it like it doesn't all hit, but when it does, it's still there.
Even like the cop, the interrogating the prisoner, the two cops, the good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
Like that is a quintessential Mr. Show sketch.
Yeah.
It just kind of it's not offensive, and it's not doing anything deep, and you just know where it's going, and it's just complete silliness.
I loved the Jewish Pope on an ATV talking about his cholesterol medication because he eats like a giant baby with money. That just killed me.
They pulled an episode down.
Yeah, and
which I did not know. I'm looking at it going, is this a joke? Like episode from 2 to 4? Like where's episode 2?
The context of that is great, and I get it, but still,
yeah,
that was not kicking down. That was,
yes, you've missed the point completely, and they've both been vocal about how they feel about the but what kills me, it's like, okay, even if that's your mindset, Netflix, here's an idea. Maybe just re-edit the episode.
Yeah.
And still give us the other 25 minutes of content. If you want to take that bit out.
Yeah. Okay. Even though the episode will be lesser for it because it's actually a really funny bit.
Exactly. But they pull the entire episode. The whole thing. You can't, you could probably find it on YouTube somewhere, but it's erased from memory.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is only going to be up till the end of the month is I've talked about this before, but the Sparks Brothers. Well, it's the band Sparks, but it's called the Sparks Brothers documentary that Edgar Wright did. Such a great doc. I rewatched it, and it's just so good. If you know a little bit about them, if you don't know anything about them, you'll still find it enjoyable, I think. And it might turn you on to their music. But it's a great music documentary, really long overdue. To do something. And I rewatched, getting it back to Netflix, I rewatched all of the Norm Macdonald Has a Show episodes.
Oh, wow.
And boy, do I miss him. Just what a nut job.
Yeah. What a strange mind. And I absolutely loved him. There's nothing more I can say about him than that. Even
the dumb jokes at the end that he has the guest read, like, I always wonder who's buried in the tomb of the guy that invented the old switcheroo.
Yeah. Well, the thing is
Donald joke.
He had built his entire persona on being untrustworthy.
Yes.
He would say something politically right-leaning one day and something insanely left the next day, and you're like, I realized that was life to him.
Yeah.
He just really liked to mess with people.
He did. He was completely unique in that regard, and very. And the episode with him and Michael Keaton is just a joy because they're just having a blast, and Keaton's laughing, and that just made me smile.
He made me cry once on Conan O'Brien. Just because of how relentlessly he pursued a joke.
Well, you've seen remember his last Letterman appearance, that clip.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just heartbreaking because they aired his last special where he just was sitting at the computer reading his material and didn't get to do the special.
Yeah.
And there was like a round table after that with Letterman and some other people talking about him, and they brought up that moment on Letterman, and it's just because you go, whoa, you don't, where did, you've known this guy for so long, and suddenly there's this sentiment coming from him. But it made a lot more sense in context.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. How's that for a list of stuff everybody should get to and start watching?
Absolutely, you should start watching.
We did the work, so you don't have to. And if you trust us, then you'll love.
We will chew your food.
Yes.
Is that what we're saying?
I think we're basically saying, if you're listening to this, if you've come this far and you're listening to our choices, our recommendations, and you are a listener of the show, then you're probably thinking, hey, these guys have good taste, mostly. I'll give these things a try. If Brian and Jason liked it, then it's worth my time. And if I don't like it, well, I'm going to go to the Pod Stallions Facebook group and give them a piece of my mind.
A 1-star review.
Yeah.
Downvote, downvote, downvote.
Downvotes.
That'll show us.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
Good stuff.
Well,
who says we can't improv an episode?
Who says we've ever rehearsed one?
Right.
Give us a healthy debate on what you're watching, or if you disagree with our opinions, in the Pod Stallions Facebook group, or in the comments on our YouTube channel. We're going to be setting up some sort of YouTube podcasting section as well. I got to talk to you about this. Maybe we can actually record our podcast in YouTube.
I love it.
Yeah, the future.
As long as there's no nudity, I'm on board.
It's in your rider, Jason.
All right.
We'll get a body double.
Yes, please.
On an unrelated topic, do you have Bruce Valanche's number?
I can get it. I'm sure I can get it.
It's on a different topic.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. I can try. This is for your Ice Pirates documentary.
That's right. That's right. How much I love the Ice Pirates.
Leave it with me.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one. Cheers.